Hi, it's really great to be with you again. A lot of people have written us asking, well, what is TFI today? What is the family? And, well, I can tell you one thing. The family isn't what it used to be. It's different. It's changed. And in my opinion, it's changed for the better. It's difficult, though, right now to define the family. Recently, I read over hundreds of comments from you. And within those comments, you could see that there was a huge range and variety of what the family is to you. And I was thinking, well, why is that? And the answer is because each of you view the family through your experiences, through your eyes, your feelings, your experiences, your wants, your needs, your desires. And that's kind of led some of you to feel like, oh, the family is no more. But yet for others of you, it's like, hey, the family's thriving, it's growing. This is the best it's ever been. So it's a real range, it's a real variety. And I've come to the conclusion that there's probably 3,568 different ways that the family could be defined, because that's how many members we are. And each of you are looking at it through your eyes, through your experience. You know, each of you is being led by the Lord. You're doing what He's shown you to do, whether you're a student going to school and you have to spend most of your time studying and you have very little time to engage in anything with TFI, or perhaps you're a mom and dad and your young kids are going to school and you're having to work jobs, both of you, and you probably have very little time to get engaged in the family. There's also those of you who are career missionaries who have great mission works on the field, and you're spending all your day ministering to people, and TFI to you might be a real integral part of your life. You're using the materials to feed your sheep. You're really engaged. And there's just such a wide variety, and God is using each of you in different ways, and therefore each of you may look at the family as being something different, at least in your opinion, from your experience, from your needs, from the way you're looking at it. And members do define the family often by their experience. If, for example, you're living in a place and you're all on your own, and maybe there's nobody in your city and you have very few people to fellowship, well, to you, it might feel like the family's falling apart. Whereas somebody else who's working together with a team and a mission work, for you, it's like thriving and bustling, and it's even better than it was before. So that's just a natural thing for you to kind of define the family as to your experience. And so like I said, it's really hard to define exactly what the family is today, because it depends on who's giving the definition. And if I define it, I'll define it in my experience, what I think it is, whereas you might think it's something completely different. But one thing about the family today is that it's based on the same foundational principles that it's always been based on: the love of God, the mission, following God, living for the Lord, having external and heavenly values, trusting God for His supply, His faithfulness to supply, His faithfulness to answer prayer, the promises that He's made, and His faithfulness to, of course, answer those promises. Other things like needing to have word time with the Lord, hearing from the Lord in prophecy, the power of prayer, the power of faith, looking to God for His guidance, for His plan, and following Him. You know, those are the same things that we've always believed and that have always been foundational, and they still apply very much to your life. Whether you're that student, whether you're the parents, whether you're the career missionary, no matter who you are or what you're doing, these principles still hold true. Now, how they're implemented, how you live them, or how they're lived out in your life will be different for different people, depending on how the Lord is using you or where He's led you to. And that's okay. That's just great. But the principles still remain the same. Now, in the past, we lived our faith in a really sort of structured way. Every home basically operated the same, under the same general rules. We pretty much all got our spiritual input from the same source. We kept the same requirements. We had the same rules. We had the same kind of language and lingo and all of the rest. I mean, everything that we did, no matter where you went, it was the same. I mean, you hear this from academics. They'd say, these guys who had traveled around and visited, homes in India, homes in Africa, or wherever, and they would say, everywhere you go, the people are different, but the way it is, the family, the spirit, how their lives are, their homes, it's the same. And it was very sort of collective, and that was our collective society. It was part of our culture. However, while in the past we had all these same things, the same regulations and all the rest, today you live the word and the foundational principles and the core values in accordance to where the Lord has put you, the life that you lead, the life that he's led you to. But yet, nevertheless, you still live those foundational things. So it's in a way it's the same, but it's how you apply them, and it's very different. And the thing is how you do it is up to you, and how the Lord leads you, and depending on where he's led you to. Now, I think something you really kind of need to understand, and I imagine you do, but maybe I just want to say it again just to make sure, and that is our new model is based on diversity. And diversity is a natural outcropping of following God. So we have to expect that people will be living their lives and serving the Lord in ways that are different. There isn't just one way to do it, and there won't be just one way to do it. There's not going to be an organizationally mandated method of how you're supposed to serve the Lord, or how you're supposed to live your life, or how you're supposed to worship, or how you're supposed to witness, or how you're supposed to do any of these things. And the reason is because the organization, Maria and I, we don't want to tell you what to do. What we want is for you to follow the Lord. And when you do, he's going to show you to do some things. He's going to show somebody else to do something else. He's going to lead and guide people according to his will for them, according to their gifts, their talents, their burdens. And it's going to be very, very different and very, very diverse. And we rejoice in that. Maria and I are really honestly super happy about this because we love you. And we know that you'll be happy doing what the Lord shows you to do rather than what we're telling you to do. And quite honestly, it's not so fun to be the guy sitting here telling you what to do. But it is fun to tell you this. Please, just follow the Lord. Follow God. That's the family today. People that follow God, okay? And do what he says and reap his blessings and live their burdens and their dreams and all of the rest because they're pleasing him, and therefore he's pleased to please you. He knows what's best for you in your life, and he wants to use you in ways that sync up with your gifts and your talents and your burdens and the things that he's put in your heart. You might be building a school in Africa. You might be helping AIDS patients. Perhaps you're an end time expert and you really like to, you have a website, or you preach the end time to a lot of people. Maybe you have a healing ministry. You do street healing. You teach others about healing. You go to the hospitals. You pray for the sick. Perhaps God's leading you to become somebody else, to become a nurse, or maybe what you do is you sell Aurora products for your livelihood and to get out the message. And there's many of you who are focused right now on your kids and getting them adjusted to a new lifestyle and all of the rest. And that's kind of what the family is. All of you doing these things, there's diversity. It's different. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not one thing anymore like in many ways it used to be. And quite honestly, in as far as the future, we see diversity as being permanent. Now, barring God coming down and saying, hey, I got a model for you and you're supposed to do just this, which we really doubt is going to happen. Diversity is here to stay. It's God's plan because God wants us to follow him. And when we follow, it's going to bring diversity. And following God is a cornerstone. There's other ones, but following God is one of the major cornerstones of the family. And when we follow that, it results in you doing what God has led you to do. And again, we rejoice in that. We're so happy about it. Okay, and when he leads you to do what he leads you to do, it's not necessarily going to be the same thing that he leads somebody else to, which Which brings me to another point, that if you've sought the Lord for direction in your life, and then he's given you that direction, then you can be pretty sure that you're in God's will for you. But you have to remember that, dear brother so-and-so or dear sister so-and-so, she's probably prayed or he's probably prayed and asked the Lord what they should be doing. So then the Lord tells them to do, and lo and behold, maybe what he told you to do is different than what he told them to do. But they're just as much in God's will as you. And we have to be careful to respect God's calling in other people. And to not think that, well, because God has given me this deep burden in my heart for, X, whatever X is, for whatever ministry it is that you're doing, that you can't kind of transfer that over and say, well, that's what everybody should be doing. Everybody should be doing this. Because look, I'm so into it, or God has just gushed it into my life and into my heart, and that's what I live and breathe for. That's my 100%. What's wrong with everybody else that they don't get that? Well, the fact of the matter is that's your calling. And there will be other people within the family and without that have the same calling or have the same interests, especially people who aren't saved. They'll be called to you, or they'll be drawn to you because what you have is what they're looking for. But then other people will be just like, I have no interest in what it is that you're sort of pushing, so to speak, what you're so interested in. But then here'll be another family member or another Christian who does it a different way, has this different burden, and that resonates with them. So I think what we have to do is to realize God's call to service, or God's call to that he's put in you, the burdens that he's put in you, they're for you. That doesn't mean it's for everybody else. And that's part of diversity as well. And it's very, well, I had this in my notes, and I wasn't, so sure I wanted to say this, but I will. We have to be, it's a little spiritually immature to kind of think, well, if I'm doing this, what's wrong with them? And something's wrong, and, the family's not right for this, or because they're not doing this thing that the Lord has showed me it's so important. If the Lord has showed you it's important, it is. It's his will for you. But you can't project that onto everybody else, and it's really not good to do so. And so, and when you do that, and when you kind of poo-poo other people, I think it's disrespectful for one thing, and it's demeaning, and it's actually judgmental. So please, you want people to respect your calling, your anointing, what the Lord has called you to do. Well, respect them. And that includes, people who like I've heard this, a number of people say, well, I don't know what's happened, but, our young people all went off to college. And they left the field or this and that. And it's like, okay, yes, they did. But if they've prayed, and if God told them to do that, and that is what the path that he's leading them on, do you want to be saying, hey, no, don't go. Stay here on the field with me? Well, you might just be fighting against God in a sense. And yeah, I'd be happy if more people stayed on the field and were doing that. But we don't know the future. Maybe that person who goes and gets their degree and they come out later, they have a different position in society. They're much greater, they could be much greater used. Maybe they will be, who knows? Maybe they'll be the first U.S. president who's not a Mormon, but who's a TFI member. How's that? Who knows down the line? So, I'm kidding, of course, but, so I think we just need to be mindful of these things and to be a little more mature on it, and to realize and to really honestly respect other people. Respect their connection with the Lord, their calling, their burdens, and how God has led them. Okay, I want to spend a few more minutes, or a few minutes anyway, on something that a lot of you have written about, and that has to do with TFI moving from the old model into the new, that many people have felt like a loss of identity. And that's painful for them, and it's been very difficult to go through. And I'll mention it later, but it's kind of like losing a loved one or having some major experience, and it causes you grief, and it's difficult to get through, and there is that period of grieving, And there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. It's actually quite natural. Now, having said that, not everyone feels that way, but a number of people have written, and I've heard it many, many times, so that's why I wanted to say something about it. It's a real thing, but the loss of identity isn't unique to TFI members. It happens to people in society at large quite often. Anybody who's, say, been a CEO and then they retire. Well, they have all these people that are obeying them, and, they're the big cheese in the place. And the next thing you know, they go down to Starbucks and they're getting their coffee, and the guy can't even remember who they are. Yeah, my name's Ernie here, and it's they give them the thing and they say, oh, here's Bernie. You become nobody. You're the everybody, and then you're the nobody. It's a real shockaroo. Moms and dads who have like half a dozen kids, and they're with them, from the first one and to the last one gets out of the house. It's like 40, 50 years, and all of a sudden they're alone, and their whole lives were sort of geared around their kids. And all of a sudden it's like, my identity was my kids. Or people who get divorced or lose a mate to death. Well, then all of a sudden it's like, well, my identity was connected with this person, and now it's gone. And they kind of have to rebuild their identity. Well, in many ways, it's been that way for us too. Most of us defined our lives in relation to TFI. TFI kind of, being a member of TFI kind of defined who you were, because your membership represented your lifestyle and how you raised your kids and what you read every day and how long you read it and your spiritual beliefs. It influenced your vocabulary, our culture, your friends, your close circle of friends, the people that you dated, your means of livelihood, and on it goes, because we were so societal. We were, that's who we were, that we were all together a part of that. And now that's changed. And now TFI isn't your sole or your primary identity. You're in a whole different situation. And that which was so much a part of you and so important, and like when people say, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a member of TFI, or I'm a missionary, I live communally and we do this. That's gone. And it's like, that was part of you. Just like your husband or your wife who died, or just like your kids being there, just like your old job when you were the CEO, that sort of thing. And it's really, really a change. Now, of course, it's not like the Lord left you. And the Lord still has an integral part of your life. He plays a central role. But the organization of TFI doesn't play that same central role in your life, and neither should it anymore. That's changed. And the Lord wants you to find and to develop your personal identity. And if you haven't already, it's something to really pray about. And especially if you're struggling with the loss of everything, this was all what I was and now I don't. Well, we are sorry that you feel that way. And it's very natural to feel that way. But like I said, it's not just because you're in TFI. That could have happened and happens to you in some other instance or for some other reason, just like it does to people in greater society. But today, TFI should, I hope it's still part of your life. I'm not trying to say, oh, well, it's not important anymore. It is a part of your life, but it can be a small part or a large part or whatever part you want it to play, kind of depending on what you're doing and how involved you are and how the Lord leads you and what's your career and what's your mission participation. And perhaps people who are career missionaries and they've been TFI members and their work is the family this or that, family Africa or whatever. Well, there's no reason, if there's no reason for them to not be that, well, they're that and they're happy, and that's still part of their identity. That's somebody who has a larger part, or has the family as a larger part of their identity. But then there's others who are doing something else. Well, then TFI is probably a smaller part of your identity, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so now we talked earlier that we mentioned earlier that some of this loss of identity brings grieving and over the things that were lost, the things that really helped you feel who you were or your importance. And there certainly are some beautiful things that were in the family in the past that aren't there now. And you can feel them as a loss. I feel some of those as a loss. But we can't kind of dwell in the loss. We can't constantly be thinking, I don't have that anymore. I don't have, people who helped me with this. I don't have people who used to do that with me, or my friends, we used to all live together and now we don't. And now I'm on my own and I lost all that. And because then you're just thinking of loss. It's like, well, my husband died and now my life can't go on because it was so attached. Well, in a case like that, your husband is gone or your wife is gone. And at some point, you have to accept it. You have to accept that things have changed and decide, that was a part of my life and it was a beautiful part of my life. And perhaps it, was the best part of my life. But things have changed now and I need to move forward. And, if you spend all the time kind of looking back, you'll never look ahead what's coming. You'll always be looking at what has been left behind and you'll miss things that the Lord wants to give you. You'll miss the blessings. You'll miss the new opportunities. Because in truth, the Lord said that, that he was changing the family. And he said he was changing the family for the future. Now, when you kind of think about that, what does that mean? In my opinion, it's not like he was saying, oh yeah, I'm changing the family so it can die. I think he's saying, hey, I'm changing the family. I'm changing, mixing everything up because there's new opportunities out there that you couldn't get when you were all living communally and all living in a certain place and all doing sort of the same thing in the same method. He's opening doors. But if you're looking behind and if you're looking at the loss and if you're lamenting and you don't at some point say, okay, enough, it's time to move forward, you're going to miss those open doors. You're going to be walking right by them and just, you're missing because you're looking the other direction. God has things for you. Okay? He has the new. He has those opportunities. And they're not going to just drop out of the sky necessarily. Maybe you're going to have to work for them or search for them. But he has them. And if you're in that situation where you feel like you've really lost your identity and you're really struggling, and then you really should seek the Lord about it and ask him to help you to overcome it. Maybe you should get coaching, get some counseling, talk to somebody else about it who might be able to help steer you in the right direction. And, there's probably plenty of grief counseling type things that you could read about, or there's loss or change, because like I said, millions and millions and millions of people go through this pretty much on a regular basis in the world. And so I'm sure there's things you could read. I do know that there's coaches that can help you with things like that. So pray about that, because you want to get over that. You don't want to be sort of dwelling in difficulty and dwelling in loss. Okay, give me a second. I'm way off my notes. Talking about this was on my notes, but now I'm like, so give me a sec. How many of you ever been sort of dumped by a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Probably many of us, if you're of a certain age anyway. And if you're like some people, it's happened more than once. And at the time, it's just, that's one of these changes. That's one of these times. It devastates you, and your identity was, we were a couple, and all of a sudden, it's gone. But then, if you have to move on from that. And when you do, maybe 2 years later, you look back and you think, I have a beautiful wife now, and I have a beautiful child, and thank God I wasn't together with so-and-so. Thank God that thing that was so difficult, that door closed, slammed in my face, squashed my nose while it did, and it hurt like hell. But I'm so glad, because now I'm where God wants me to be. Now I have those blessings. Well, it's the same thing. So please, if you're really grieving over the past, if you feel kind of listless and lost and you feel like God, everything's been taken away, take heart. Go to the Lord. Recognize that things have changed. The past is gone. And honestly, it's not coming back. The way it was before is over. The Lord said, he wanted it to be over. He wanted it changed. He wanted us to move into the future. And he wants us to kind of let go of those things. So if you're grieving and if it's really hard for you, well, ask the Lord to help you to recognize, hey, it's a new time. We're heading into the future. You are heading into the future. And he has things for you, but he can't give them to you as long as you're looking back. Okay? Look forward. Realize that opportunity is ahead. Opportunity that if you really follow the Lord will be something that you want to do, something that resonates with you. And my personal belief is that you will be much, much happier in time. You'll realize that change that has been so hard and that loss and those things that you actually lost and you did lose them are unimportant now, because now new vistas have opened up to you. New life has opened up to you, and it'll make a difference. So let go. Hang on to the Lord. Keep looking to him, and he's going to lead you to what he has for you, okay, in the future. All right? Okay, I went over now, and I got to wrap this up. But in our next video, we'll talk some more about the topic of what is TFI today. Okay? God bless you. I really love you. Thanks for sitting through this. I got way off on all my notes, but it was from my heart. God bless.